summer to autumn. My aspect of transition from summer to autumn. So we'll start with summer. What do we try and look for within the lake during our summer fishing? So in relation to pre-spawning, post-spawning, the fish have spawned, so we're working into the height of the summer now, and generally the weed's climbing, it's full of insects, plenty of larvae in the water for the fish. So we would be looking to find areas next to the weed, clear spots, hard spots, spots close to the weed where fish feel safe, really. Overhangs, islands, tree canopies, all them sort of areas would relate to summer fishing. So we mark her up close to weed beds. What do weed beds achieve for the fish? So oxygenated water during the day, they play in the weed. As you move into the evening, the weed zaps the oxygen out of the water, so the fish tend to move out of these areas, but not too far. So we would try and find clear spots next to a weed bed. Generally a good place to put a bait for catching during the summer months. Tree canopies, great in the height of the summer when it's red hot. Shade for the fish, same again. It's another aspect of finding a spot under a tree canopy where there's going to be insects dropping in the water. And then islands, pretty much the same, where they can get out the sun through parts of the day, be in the sun in others, shallow areas. So how do we fish these spots relating to the aspect of summer fishing? So we'd always aim to find a shallow spot next to weed. How do we approach this? Now, how I approach it is single bait fishing, realistically. They're preoccupied on naturals within the weed, under these tree canopies, close to islands. So if you can get a rig close to them, realistically you're looking to nick a bite. Sometimes you can have 2 or 3 fish, but general rule of thumb, you'll probably just nick a fish during the day, and then hoping that they return into the weed beds for the evening, where then you can maybe pick 2 or 3 more up. Now, I've been quite successful this summer in my own angling, and I've caught by fishing a 4-stringer bait. So as I relate to this, I have put 4 boilies in a stringer, and then because I fish the German rig, which we've got one tied up here, this is my rig here. Now, as I relate to that, along here be another 4 boilies in PVA mesh, and then I would use the bait screw to attach onto the first boilie. Bearing in mind then you've got another 4 down here. So theoretically, when you put that onto your spot, you're always fishing in front of your loose offerings. So when that mesh opens, 3 or 4 offerings disperse off the explosion of the PVA mesh, which then they probably roll a little bit, they'll move, but your hook bait's always fishing this side of your bait that's come out the mesh, which is really, really effective. The fish are coming in, hitting them 3 or 4 loose offerings, and then your hook bait's the next one. That's one version of it. The second version of fishing clear spots near weed or shallow spots under canopies is the solid bag. Solid bag can be really effective at this time of year. Never very often do I bait in a summer. I just find if you can fish close to snaggy areas, weed beds, as the fish are in and out from being preoccupied on naturals, then you've got a great chance of picking one up and picking the bigger fish up as well. So then that takes us into the transition of autumn. Now, as I've just spoken about them spots near the weed, in autumn the weed starts to die off. The fish are smashing it up. The naturals are getting less and less. So my aspect of that would be to go in with a marker float on the initial spots that you'd found close to them weed beds in the summer with one marker. And then I also have a second marker rod. So then I like to marker up next to the initial spot, which now realistically, as you're pushing into autumn, them clear spots next to the weed where we was fishing in the summer now become a little bit dangerous to the fish because the weeds disappearing, the naturals are dying down, and basically them clean areas are now a little bit vacant of surroundings, so then they become danger. So relating to that, we've put the marker float on one of those spots. I've now got a second marker rod out and I'm markering to that marker float but edging off it all the time. So then I want to get down the slopes or off the bars or off the plateaus where it's deepening off, and then you're finding silt, because the next place for the fish to find naturals once the weeds died is the silt bloodworm. And by achieving this, you can then apply bait onto your silty areas, a little bit deeper water after they've spawned. They can get down to them areas and then they can feed comfortably. So how do we feed this coming into autumn? How do we change how we didn't feed in the summer to how now we're going to change how we feed in autumn? So in autumn I like to go boilie only, 10s, 15s, 18s, mix it all up. You know, we're trying to mug these fish off. You've got to get them in a frenzy and you've got to trick them. So mixing them baits up confuses these fish. Now, how I tend to react to this is I'll turn up at the lake, fill a bucket of water up, and I'll probably put 3-4 kilo of boilie, what's come straight out of the freezer, into the bucket so it's pre-soaked. Leave that for 5 or 6 hours in the water with added stick mix liquid, which I use from Mainline. So although you're washing your baits out in the lake water, which is accepting all the pH levels from the lake water as well, you're also pumping flavour back into the bait as it's drawing in the water. Right, so then when you're happy that you've found your spots and you're happy to go and you're ready to feed, your bait in your buckets absorbed your water, your lake water, with the added liquid in, which is then creating a washed out bait. But because you've put liquid into your water, you then created a bait that the fish thinks is washed out, but it's still super concentrated with flavour. Now I'll go into a little bit of depth with that. So you've put your bait out with your spom, you've spommed up, let's go 15 spoms on the spot. You've got your boilie in. Bearing in mind, you've washed it out in your bucket. So in theory, the fish shouldn't be wary of this bait coming straight out of the bag. It should be acting like it's washed out on the lake bed to the fish, even though you've added the liquid to your bait. Now what does this achieve? So what this achieves is, because you've moved off the hard spots and you've gone into the silty areas, which is a little bit softer, so you're getting that sponge drop as you drop your lead in. Not the crack down, you're getting the sponge drop. What's happening then is, as your boilie settles on the lake bed, because it's got added liquid in it, it starts dispersing. So anytime any fish comes into that bait, ruffles it up on your spot, it kicks off a cloud. Now that's your added flavour, what you've put into your lake water on your pre-soaked bait. That then gives the carp a red mist, which then triggers them. They tip up, they feed, and then hopefully they're picking you up and getting nailed. And that is my transition from summer to autumn. Now I'm just going to, I'll run you through the rig that I use. So I use the German rig. Never changed my rig throughout all my fishing unless spring when you fish pop-ups. But summer and autumn, what we're talking about, I use the German rig, which is here. So I use a size 4 curve KD hook, a 25-pound length of jelly wire. I use the extra stiff aligner, curved aligner, and these are absolutely fantastic, these. The hook holes I've had this year by adapting this onto my rig rather than just a normal kicker has been sensational. I've gone to, alright, yeah, bottom lip hooking the fish, but that changed from going 2 inches back just by incurring this extra stiff curved aligner. Moving on, then we've got a bait screw on there, and then we've got an hook bead, which just allows a little bit of movement for the swivel to the hook bead to the aligner. And then at this end we've just got an overhand knot with an anti-tangle sleeve, and then you just attach your 18mm wafter bait, which I use on my presentation. The hook lays flat like that and the bait sits on top, and that's done me some nice fish this year. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. That rig does my fishing summer, autumn, and probably winter, to be honest. There's only spring when I'll change, when it turns into a pop-up. And that is my transition from summer to autumn.